Thanks, Prof. So the paper that we is one entitled Diet-Induced Extinctions in the Gut Microbiota Compound Over Generations. And it's a big, long, complex-sounding title, but it actually, when you see how the investigators went about this study, it actually makes quite a bit of sense. And this was published this month in Nature. So this isn't a technical difficulty with the projector, but this is actually showing you the different numbers and types of microorganisms that are found in the normal gut of humans, mice, any species really. And this study really focused on the difference between what is known as an agrarian diet, or kind of your typical pre-industrialized diet, and a Western diet. An agrarian diet's grains, vegetables, unpasteurized sort of foods, compared to the streamlined, low fiber, highly refined sugars and carbohydrate diets that we see in many westernized cultures. And it's a diet that's being more and more rapidly prevalent throughout the world. And the question is whether or not our bodies are able to adapt to this or not. And a lot of this comes from Denis Burkitt, who was an Irish physician long after his description of Burkitt's lymphoma. He moved to Uganda, and he noticed quite a difference in the diet between what he was used to in the kind of Western world and what he saw in Africa. And what he said was in Africa, treating people who largely live off the land, vegetables they grow, I hardly ever saw cases of many of the most common diseases in the US and England, including coronary artery disease, adult onset diabetes, varicose veins, obesity, diverticulitis, appendicitis, gallstones, cavities, hemorrhoids, hiatus hernia, constipation. So a lot of the things we still see today. And what he kind of concluded was that Western diets are so low on bulk and so dense in calories that our intestines just don't pass enough volume to remain healthy. And that was in 1977. And it really formed a lot of what we see in our dietary plans today, that high fiber is good, low fiber is bad, but we don't really know why. So in this paper, the kind of hypothesis is that the gut microbiome, the bugs that we see in our gut normally, it's a modifiable thing. It's a modifiable entity. And that a high fiber diet, which is associated with highly accessible carbohydrates, is good. Low carbohydrates essentially is bad and will result in a loss of this normal microbiome that we should have. And this loss is actually something that can be inherited. It's a generational loss, and that could be irreversible. And that possibly if we could reverse this effect, it could have therapeutic benefit for many of the diseases we see. So going back to that initial picture I showed, what they found here was that from generation to generation, if you look at the top half here, what you see is that when you go from a high fiber, highly complex carbohydrate diet to a low one, you're getting a loss in the number and the types of microbiomes, microorganisms that you see in the gut. And when you switch back these people's diets, you're not able to get back those microbiomes. So once they're lost, they're lost. And from generation to generation, we're losing more and more of the organisms we should have or should be there. So how do they get it back? Well, this here in the bottom half, what they did was they took the healthy microorganisms from a high carbohydrate diet, high fiber diet, and physically gave it back to the specimens, and they were able to regain the microorganisms they should, and they were healthier as a result. So what were the conclusions from this paper? Well, a change in our diet has resulted in a change of the microbiomes that we should have in our colon, and that changing it back may simply not be enough to restore the diversity which should be there. But it's that these rapid changes in the microbiome can occur very quickly from one generation to the next. And physically, as humans, we are not able to evolve that quickly. So the rapid change in the diet, going to a Western diet in many parts of the world, our bodies aren't able to cope with this, and this may be leading to many disease processes. But if we could change it back, it may help with many diseases that we see today. So just in conclusion, last quote from Denis Burkitt: if you pass small stools, you'll have to have large hospitals.
So the concept is that we eat fiber to feed our microbiome, isn't it? Not to bulk up our stool, but to actually...
I think what they're getting at here is that it's a bit of a symbiotic relationship, that the microbiome in our gut, it's there to help us and we're there to feed them,
Yes.
which one's working off which.
The fibre isn't